Do you love interior design but can't make the business side work? You've come to the right place. Welcome to Success by Design, mastering the business of interior design. Whether you want to elevate in your current interior design firm, start your own firm, or move the needle when it comes to your existing firm's trajectory, this is your masterclass, and I'm your host, Decker-Erickson. Learn from my mistakes as I built a coast-to-coast, multi-million-dollar interior design firm. I share nearly 20 years of serving as a university professor of undergraduate and graduate business courses with you. And best of all, I bring in experts in all things business and interior design. Class starts now. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this special episode of Success by Design, Mastering the Business of Interior Design that we lovingly call The Table. And I love this episode. We do it once every quarter. We invite people in the know, industry names you probably do know, to gather around a table, literally and figuratively, and have a conversation about something that is time sensitive and matters. And I was joking before we came on because I don't know if this was either our brightest move or my worst move, but we are going to talk tariffs today because they don't seem to be going away, right? And as of this recording, they're off-ish. But then they're on-ish, depending on what country you are and the amount. And it's just creating a lot of mayhem and confusion in our industry. And so we've brought Jennifer, Laurie, Rick all to the table to have the conversation about where it's at, whether it's on or off, what you should be doing in your business to make sure that you're succeeding and that you're keeping your clients. So without further ado, welcome everybody. Yay.
Hello. It's good to be here.
I know. Is everyone taking their Tums and Pepto-Bismol? Because we're going to do all the things today on tariffs. And it has created a lot of heartburn for everybody. Laurie, tell me, just out of the gate, you have, 110,000 designers on your email list. Let's talk about what you're hearing in your chats with designers, because it seems like there's a lot of fear out there, and rightly so.
Well, I think it's layered because our community also includes designers, it includes brands. And so from the brand perspective on the distribution level, and I'm talking, the Wayfairs of the world and Overstock and all of the aggregator accounts are getting letters from manufacturers that are saying, here's the increase, but you can't change MSRP. Which is interesting, right? I mean, that some of them are as much as 10%.
That seems kind of cruel.
Yes. And they're saying, eat it at this point. You can't change the MAP pricing, which of course they're going to immediately fight back on. I mean, it's really difficult to lose that much in furniture, especially when there are returns and that kind of thing. Designers are getting letters from manufacturers. Some have been very thoughtful in the process and have gone through item by item. I will shout out to Howard Elliott. They did that. They went through and is this made of aluminum? And is this, going to be impacted by the tariffs? And they itemized it. And then there are some that are kind of across the board. And I think that it's really scary to designers because it's ever changing. They're wondering what is available in stock today with brands that I already trust. How are my clients going to be impacted? Are they going to be implemented after the order? So if I have already quoted, if I've already got that quote out, is that going to be the price that is? So communicating all of that back to the client is essential. We had Wendy Estella, who I'm sure all of you know, she's a business attorney for interior designers, create a letter that you can send out to your clients about their options as far as how they want you to source. It's very tricky to say, we could buy domestic only because even if you buy domestic only, there are products within that product that are usually not domestic. So
that's a key nugget.
It's a very complicated, layered issue.
Well, yeah, because you can say, I want my couch out of the States. Yeah, but what about all the lumber that comes out of Canada and all the steel and appliances?
Or the fabric.
Right.
Or the brackets. There's so much in a sofa that is not from the United States, no matter what.
Yeah.
So it's going to affect all of us.
Yeah.
It is. You can run, but you can't hide. Tariffs are coming
sure.
for you, so we might as well drive the train.
Yeah.
Rick, how are you helping the designers you work with drive that train?
I think of a lot of my coaching clients right now are just a little bit overwhelmed by the information. They're having a lot thrown at them all at once. They're trying to keep their eye on the news. They're trying to understand the intricacies of tariffs, and they're trying to determine ways to communicate effectively with their clients. My advice to them has been to respond and not react. I posted that on Instagram and I talked to designers about that. because this thing really is kind of bigger than us, and it's a moving target. It's not going to go away, and it's going to happen again. So this is just one of the many challenges that as business owners we're experiencing. So, I'm trying to encourage my coaching clients to just like think back to COVID and remember that challenge with the supply chain issues and all of that. And how did you communicate with your clients then? What worked and what didn't? Guess what? Do what worked and don't do what didn't. So take a step back. Like Laurie said, communication is key. Like that's going to be the answer to everything. But I will say that, some of the designers are like, hey, listen, I feel like this is impacting my ability to get new work because people have things on pause because they're waiting to see what's going to happen. And then I also have designers in a position where they're like, listen, the house is built, we're ready to order furniture, and now there's this hesitation happening. And so that's a delicate conversation that you have to have as well, because clients are wondering, like, am I still going to get as much for my money as I was before? And they're looking to designers to answer that question. And it's really difficult to answer. But at the end of the day, you just have to keep the project going. I'm reminding my clients and designers that I'm talking to, we cannot control this. This is out of our control. There's only so much we can do. And our clients know that, but sometimes they need to be reminded of that because we're all looking for answers.
If we all had a seat at the Oval Office, it would just be such a different situation. Wouldn't that be lovely? Jennifer, I love that you join us with a global perspective from Nigeria. What are your designers seeing in Nigeria? And what is it like to live in a global environment where this is something that is potentially knocking at your door?
So inflation is everywhere. So definitely if anything is happening, it's affecting everyone.
Great perspective.
Regardless of if it's happening in America, Canada, most of the things that we get, we import them anyway. So it would definitely affect us. You just have to be honest with them and let them know this is what's happening and it is what it is. So it just boils down to being honest, right? So once you're honest, you're transparent, you're explaining at every point in time what's happening, then I think every client should be fine because it's a global world. So whatever happens in world A happens in B. So it's the same thing that's happening everywhere.
I love what you said, especially I think it just comes down to trust.
Yeah.
Do your clients have that trust relationship with you? We all feel insecure and scared and like, who knows? Yeah, you can watch the news and literally it's changing by the minute. But like it comes down to, once again, having that rapport with your client that I'm in this too.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily always know what's going on out here, but I'm watching it with you and we're going to do everything we can to protect you. I mean, one of the things we did as a firm is when we knew or had an inkling that this was going to start happening, we rushed orders. And so in 1 week alone, we did a hefty 6 figures of ordering just to get everything into production to try to get it through the ports before this was implemented. Now, obviously, that's not a sustainable model moving forward. But at least for the people that were already working with us, had plans, it was like, we can do this to try to push this through for you. And that really meant the world to them. It was a lot of late nights for our crew. And a big shout out to our team for doing that. But I think it's the right and the ethical thing to do for the clients. I love what you said, Laurie, about a letter and just saying, here's where we're at and kind of how we got here. What else are you advising, or what other good advice are you seeing when it comes to, not that you could even really manage these, but you can manage the narrative around tariffs with your client? And I think that is the key.
I honestly think it's very tricky, more nuanced than people would give it credit for, because there is a layer of xenophobia in the mix. There's geopolitical issues.
For sure.
We have a lot more going on, and how you navigate it in a classy way while being understanding. Most people that have wealth have a lot of money in the stock portfolio and probably took a big hit. Some of that recovering a little bit, but maybe not. We don't know how that's going to go. And when people are afraid, they need some sort of reassurance. They need some sort of hand-holding. And you're going to have to nurture that a little bit. I'm always a problem solver. So I'm always thinking, like, what could be the positive of all of this? And
I love that.
I do think there's a lot of amazing makers and craftsmen that have been knocked off for many years in North Carolina. And supporting those, like when we go to High Point, it's a wonderful time. We meet all of our friends. We get a lot of education. But sometimes we overlook the fact that it's really representing so many factories and makers and craftsmen that are there selling their wares. And there's a whole lot of people we don't see from behind the scenes that are making these goods and their livelihoods depend on this economy. And so by showing up, by participating, by honoring that process as much as we possibly can, we're doing the best we can for the people that we care about. And we're also making sure our clients have high quality goods. So I think that navigating that is part of the journey, obviously.
I think that's a great point. We've talked about like managing down your supply line or managing downstream with your clients. It's also about managing upstream, as you're alluding to, and finding those unique vendors that maybe you wouldn't reach out to on any other day, but all of a sudden it gets a lot more appealing when literally they're 3 blocks down doing custom tables. It's a lot better than, say, the 46% tariff we're looking at presently out of Vietnam. I mean, that's just insane. Right. Rick, talk to me about managing upstream and managing vendors. I think as designers, we don't often put ourselves in the power seat of saying, hey, I can go to my vendor and I can negotiate with them too. And that is a great place to be in this situation. Talk through that.
Yeah, I have to agree with Laurie. I think it's never been a better time to rely on local resources, local artisans, and this could be an opportunity for designers to utilize those specialty artisans and lines that maybe the clients were hesitant to use in the first place because of price point. And now suddenly that price point falls in line and there's a little of an insurance behind it that it's made locally and it's going to be available. And it's not going to be subject to this roller coaster that we're encountering. But, upstream too, I'm encouraging designers not to panic and change their entire way of doing business. Again, not to react too much. Don't throw away your top 10 vendors and change to other vendors who are readily available and make all these changes, because you have to remind yourself why your clients hired you in the first place. Ooh, and I think it's important to be true to your design commitment to your clients. You're specifying items that are right for the project, that are good for the project, that make sense. There's always a cost associated with that. And wherever we're at in this world and whatever the pricing looks like, it is what it is. Let the client decide if they're willing to commit to that investment or if you have to go back to the drawing board. But I don't think that designers should immediately, for the lack of a better word, dumb down design just in the interest of saving our clients money. Because listen, that's not why they hired us. 100%. They did not hire us to save them money.
No.
It may be a conversation that we'll be having, but that is not why they hired us.
Don't start out VEing your project until the client asks for it.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, Jennifer, great question here in thinking about pricing that you had submitted ahead of time. And I love this question. How much detail should we share with clients about rising costs? And should we break down the expenses or just say, this is the new rate? I think there's a lot of designers that struggle with that, especially when you don't know what that new rate necessarily should be, because we're dealing with everything from 100+% tariffs, potentially with China. 46, I think, is where Vietnam is sitting at the moment. I mean, just pick your day, pick your flavor. It's like Baskin Robbins, 31 flavors of tariffs, right? We just don't know. How do you do that?
Like I said initially, it's just back to being honest, right? So I think for me, I'd like to break down everything so they know what's involved. So all the costs, I find that when you're open with the client and you tell them exactly how it is, even if they're upset, but it is what it is, right? So being open and explaining to them what to expect, set the expectations right. I think most times when we try to hide away from what the reality is, that's where there's an issue, right? But if you're open and explain to them why this is, and the only way you can provide a good service or quality service or provide a good design or whatever, these are the realities. So I'll still say the same thing. So just be honest, explain it in details. Line by line. If I need to educate you, I will educate you. If I need to sit down with you, I'll sit down with you. But the moment you understand it, then it's easier for you to. I prefer to break it down.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that because, to Rick's point, the clients are scared too. They don't necessarily know what's going on. And like Laurie said, they lost tons of money in the market. A lot of money potentially. It's nice when someone takes the time to actually sit at the table with them and explain it, which is why we're all here having the industry conversation, right? Because you need everybody phone a friend. We all feel a lot better when we can do that, right? And just have that space to do that. I think it makes such a difference. And Laurie, you said something really interesting when we were chatting last week about a Canadian client, I believe it was. Can you share that story? Because I think it's so relevant to the conversation that we're having and what potentially could be a silver lining if there is one.
This designer, he's one of our members, is really a sweet, wonderful designer from Montreal and loves to work with American brands, but had their client come to them and say, I'm sorry, we can't buy American right now. And it's not necessarily because of the tariffs at this particular time. It was really because of the political landscape between the US and Canada. And so there was a 30% increase to buy French products. It was a $70,000 order, and he canceled the order. And my thought was that is the undocumented byproduct of all of this. It's not going to be able to be measured. What are the sales that are going to be lost based on this happening behind the scenes, where there's just a feeling about the American people and the American businesses that clients from other countries might not want to participate in our markets. And that's a fallout of this issue. I mean, we're going to face that. The positive that I can swing on this is that people do care about us. I mean, there are Canadian friends that have reached out. There are Irish friends that have reached out, designers from across the world that have contacted me personally to see how we're doing. You know, there are a lot of designers I know who have friends from all over the world that they've met in the world of design. And we are looking out for each other. We are trying to be a community that still is trying to maintain decorum and friendship and, you know, reaching across the aisle as much as we possibly can to, you know, just support all of us and the brands that we support too. It's all about people at the end of the day, right? So
it's everything we
forget
do.
that.
Yeah. I mean, it's even interesting being in the commercial design world because we talk about that. In fact, I was on a new client call and they said, we don't have anything at the moment, but we're so glad to meet with you. And it was great. I said, well, the running joke at our firm is we collect clients. Like we find the good people, we collect you and we don't let you go. That means we're doing our job right as designers, right? The reality is, though, is that nothing is getting cheaper. Whether the tariffs incited all of these additional price hikes, which we have seen come through our inbox almost like spam. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And to Laurie's point, sometimes it's item by item. Sometimes it's just a blanket lump sum. We're just taking a stab at it and we're going to tack on a 4% and let it roll and see where we land. It's been all over the map. And I think that's like a really important point from a larger perspective. Nothing in life is getting cheaper. Gosh darn it. But our services shouldn't be either. And how we communicate that to clients, I think, is so incredibly important. Rick, do we say, hey, all this is going on and as a proactive measure, we're implementing an X cost on our services? How do you advise your designers when it comes to just, even if there weren't tariffs on the table, recalibrating your pricing? Everyone can be really afraid to do it because you don't want to lose the client. To Jennifer's point, you don't want to get them upset and then have to go line item by line item. So do we say Q2, we're going to be raising our rates, or we're doing our rates because of X, Y, or Z, or we're raising our rates just like everybody else? Like, what do you recommend?
Well, what makes it difficult in this situation is that you never want to raise rates mid-project. That is the worst possible scenario, but that's the scenario that we're kind of in right now. So typically, it's very easy to say, with the next client, my new design fee is going to be X and my new markup is going to be Y, and it is what it is. But mid-project, it becomes a little difficult. And so I think it goes back to communication again. And if you feel, I don't know if we necessarily have to raise our rates, we just have to enforce the rates that are being extended to us from our vendors.
Oh, repeat that, Rick. That was way too good. Because I think we feel that we're hurting our clients if, oh my gosh, bad me because I have to raise my rate. So say that again.
No, we're not setting the prices. We're just enforcing the prices that are being extended to us.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day, business is business. And so going back to the whole, we just don't have control over this. Our clients are very smart and they know exactly what's going on and they understand the position that we're in. But naturally, they're waiting for a response from us. And they're not going to say no to a discount, but they may not necessarily expect a discount either, because it's impacting them everywhere across the board. If they're going to buy a new car, they're going to pay more. If they're going to the grocery store, they're going to pay more. If they're going to buy a new handbag, they're going to pay more. So they know that everything is costing more right now, and it may not be this way forever. It may be. So the expectation,
Yeah.
it's not really there as much as we think it's there. And going back to communicating to your clients too, earlier you had said, Katie, about phoning a friend. And one of the things that I'm encouraging my designer clients to do is have conversations like this with their network. So start talking to their builders and their contractors, because they're all having these same conversations too, and ask them what's working for you. How are the clients responding, so that they can kind of borrow, some of that and implement it into their communication practice with their clients.
There's no shame in pollination. I have a slightly different perspective. I'm sorry. I just want to kind of jump in on that one. I might be on the panicking side for these designers, because I feel like design is a luxury.
It is.
Whenever the market has been this bad, it absolutely has and had an impact on people using designers. We're running into design never being more accessible through AI and other factors. It's when you're talking about the lower end of design that are going to be impacted for sure. I mean, that just is going to happen. It's time to be crafty, and it's a time to maybe take a project that you wouldn't normally take sometimes. I mean, I have had many, many calls with designers who have had projects cancel already because of inflation and these tariffs. I know that sounds nuts already, but they're business owners too that are impacted by tariffs. So whenever everybody's feeling like, I don't know which way to go, so are our clients. And so that puts everybody in a paralysis mode where they don't really want to move forward. And, our designers too still have their own livelihoods to take care of. So it does mean sometimes you do have to get crafty. Sometimes you can't raise your prices at this particular time because the market won't bear it. And it's a service. It's a luxury service that we can all do without if we have to.
That's a great perspective.
So if it's a situation where you have to pay the bills and you might have to take a remodeling project that you wouldn't typically take. In 2008, when the housing market crashed, we had a lot of designers that built blogs back then that became the best blogs on design known to man. So, sold those blogs for millions, years after. So I've been talking to other people. I'm like, I don't know how designers will navigate this. I don't have the answers per se, but I do know designers will create.
Yes.
And they will figure out a way. And it might be a hustle for a few years as we work through this. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I don't think any of us do. But I think that you have to care about your own business. There might be some clients that are just like, we don't care. This doesn't affect us that much.
Yeah.
And then there might be clients who are like, this is affecting our whole lives. Design is the last thing I'm thinking about right now. There are people who have lost 30% of their retirement income yesterday.
Yeah. $11 trillion have been lost in the stock markets under the new presidency.
That's a really good point, though, Laurie. Again, this is the time. This is that time in the roller coaster where we have to take those jobs that we wouldn't normally take. So now's not the time to have the conversations about narrowing your lane and focusing on very specific projects. Now is when we take the projects to keep the lights on. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
What it's not time for is it's not time to lose money. It's never a time to lose money. So to your point, you have to make these decisions for your business and you have to be smart about it. This is business.
Well, I agree. I think sometimes you do, though. During COVID, for instance, you might have designers that had to communicate about shipping delays. That is not billable in a flat fee environment. They were doing an extra layer of service that they couldn't actually bill for.
Right.
And so those little loss leaders across the board where you're having to up the service but not actually up the profit because you're mid-project, you do lose money. It is not fun. That's always communicating the crappiest stuff. By the way, you have a 20% increase. By the way, oops, it's now 40%. That's not fun news to deliver to anyone.
Right.
But it's like the reality of the situation is that could be what our people are dealing with. We don't know. Whatever they can absorb with that, humility, with understanding their clients, with being there for their clients, being crafty, if they have to be really keeping a light touch and understanding how to move with the punches. You know what I mean? We're all in this weird space where we just don't know where it's all going to go. It's like I feel just as much as unease as a person can feel at this point. I feel like we're going into High Point in a few weeks and it's going to feel very Hunger Games.
Yeah.
To be having a party while the world is burning.
Oh my gosh.
The temperature of High Point, I'm very curious what that's going to be.
I don't know.
It is crazy to think about.
I think it's going to take a lot of really smart, nuanced ways of working around this situation because we don't know where our clients land politically. We don't know where, or maybe we do, and we don't know where our brands are going to land. I think that there's a certain amount of up the communication, keep your vendors accountable. If they are gouging during this time.
That's not a vendor I want to dance with. We're going to find another vendor. Sorry.
Yeah, that's not a vendor you want to dance with. I've heard of some brands already that have put some hefty increases that are not in line with tariffs. So this is not a time to profit. So definitely pushing back and then just really learning to navigate it. It's such a horrible situation for designers to be in. And maybe you guys can tell me as the two designers, but it's like you're constantly the middleman. None of this is your fault, but you're having to deliver the bad news all the time. And that's not a fun place to be. It can be very wearing emotionally. I know during COVID, during the 2008 crash, it was like so many wanted to leave the business completely. So I do think what you're saying is like, don't get too reactive, even though we all feel it right now. I guess we have to figure out that nuanced way where whatever we're putting out there, we're being respectful of like that there are livelihoods at stake. All of us, the brands have livelihoods at stake. We have livelihoods at stake. Our clients have livelihoods at stake. So there's always a lot of people relying on this going well and navigating it as best as we can. And I think if we think about that and try our best, that's all we can do.
I really feel the tension that you and Rick share on this because my heart, Laurie, says yes. I hear Rick saying business is business. And at the end of the day, I have to pay my people and I have to pay my bills. And I think there's this truth in the middle in that, yes, take the powder bath you didn't want to take. One, yay, scope creep, right? There's going to be more that's probably going to evolve out of that. But I always say too, don't pick the project, pick the client. So that's one thing I tell my coaches all the time. Like that may be the most rinky-dink project you've ever seen. Is that the client you want? Do they rub shoulders with the people in the right circles that those are the clients you want? Look beyond the job. The project is secondary.
I mean, this is already a tough time. Like, do you want to hate your life
no
anymore than you already do?
We can all agree on no. But I think a huge part of this too, even though we don't necessarily know the actual numbers, is it X number out of Vietnam, Y number out of China? So much of it, as we've said, is communication. But I also think it's managing expectations. And one thing Rick and I talked about when we spoke together at High Point in the fall, and I love what Rick said when we were talking processes. He goes, you may not think you have a process, but if you have a contract, you've got your first process. And that was such a great moment, Rick. I love that. Jennifer, how do we use the contract to protect ourselves so that we can still lovingly, to Laurie's point, meet the needs of the client and pay our bills, to Rick's point? How can we do that out of the gate with that being potentially our first process?
Yeah, so you just have to let the clients know there's a caveat, right? So if you have a quotation, it's only 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, it's no more valid. So if they come back to you after that, then you just have to review the prices. That way it will help you to build trust, and whatever cost that may arise later, you know how to absorb it and all that. So, but like I always keep saying, just be honest, because I think the way it's already hard, like life is already hard as it is, right? So why complicate it? Why not just say as it is? So 2 weeks, and after 2 weeks, it's no longer valid. And whatever happens after that, then we'll take you up from there. So I think that's what we just need to do. If I should also mention, when you guys were talking about how to go about the situation and all that, I think personally now, I think we should start thinking of how to diversify. I think why most interior designers are getting so overwhelmed now, because that's like the only livelihood or means of livelihood, right? So for me, again, multiple streams of income isn't having different streams from different industries, is having different streams within the same industry, right? So take, for example, we're going through all this. I have to survive. I have a livelihood, right? So if money's not coming in from the design projects, then maybe my coaching, something is coming in. The school, something is coming in, right? You can decide to say, okay, you know what? For me now, maybe money is coming from design projects. I could say, okay, I want to start an Airbnb or chocolate business or something that will bring in the money, or there'll be flow of money somehow, so that regardless of what happens, I don't get stuck or I don't get put in a very tight corner or trying to figure out how am I going to survive. Okay. So I think that's the pressure that we all go through when this is all we have. So when you're trying to explain to the client, you're trying to, you're under so much pressure because you also want to make money. You also want to, do you understand? But if you have other streams, you're a bit relaxed. And I find that increasing our prices, I think because we wait to the end or when there's an external pressure, and that's when we become very active, right? But if we're proactive from the very beginning and know that, okay, it's time to raise my rates, not necessarily because of the tariff now, maybe my value has increased or I have a new skill or I'm working so hard, but my numbers are not adding up, right? Yeah, then it's time to increase my rates. So I think, but when you want to increase it when things are already bad, it's kind of difficult. So, but if it's something you do normally or you do biannually and clients know that somehow Jennifer is going to come up with something, now I might increase biannually. Doesn't mean I would have to implement it every time, but at least I get to review and see, okay, at this point, is it okay? Do we need to increase? Are we good at this point? Yeah, like that.
I actually have a question for all of you because you coach, because this is actually came up in our community too when we were talking about this, that someone had a business coach that said a lot of people have been suggesting just to say that the tariffs are passed through no matter what. So if you place the order and it's the vendor increases it based on tariffs, because I mean, it might have been the in-stock item, it might have been the tariffed item, and they start increasing it after they accept the purchase order, that gets passed through to the client. And you let them know, like, any tariffs are going to be passed through to you. I don't know what they are. As I know about it, you will know about it. And you kind of put an addendum in your contract that suggests that. But does your markup include the tariff price? Because that would change your markup too. So, I mean, I wouldn't suggest that for an already, purchase order in product. But the ones, if you do find out about tariffs, are you asking or suggesting to clients of yours that they increase the price based on like their normal markup with the new price, period?
Who wants to go first?
Great question. I'm like, who wants to draw the short straw?
Well, because I think to Jennifer's point, every contract should have some sort of clause in it that says that, we're not responsible for price increases after a certain amount of time, or that prices are not guaranteed, or something to that effect. Every contract has that in it somewhere. It's just about enforcing it. And as far as just passing that through, I mean, that's kind of where I'm coming from. Like, the price is what it is. And in the interest of not losing money, it just passes through to the client, and the client has to make a decision if that's a level of investment they want to commit to, or if it turns into a reselect. But I think what you're asking is if they do say, let's move forward, that tariff is what it is, do we mark up that tariff as well?
Yeah.
And I think that is an accommodation that we can make to our client, not marking up that tariff because we weren't really anticipating that profit associated with it in the first place. I think it's a nice way to meet them in the middle.
I agree.
I agree with it. I did see that this particular business coach was suggesting to the designer that they have to mark it up. They have to mark it up.
Sure.
But I'm like, jeez, that's going to cause some major problems out there in the world, Yeah. I just can't imagine if I were that client. I'd be like, so now you're going to make more money because of the tariff too? Like,
Yeah, that feels sleazy to me. And here's the other thing too. Like, when we mark up our furniture, they don't know what the raw price is. And if you are telling them what the raw price is, then don't. Book of the Discovery Public. We have got to talk. You should not be doing that, right? They can put 2 + 2 together. To Rick's point, we have really smart clients, y'all. And if they know it's X% and then they see Y with a markup on your invoice, that just feels like a Brillo pad on my backside. Like, that doesn't say to me, I'm here with your best interests in mind. You're trusting me with your home and the most intimate spaces in your life where you live life, all of the tears, all the joy. And now you're going to go mark up something implemented by the government. You're not doing more work. You're not providing me with a better service. I'm not getting a better product out of this. That frosts me if someone is doing that, because your client will find out, and that does not build trust. And back to the point of collecting clients again, that doesn't say, I want you in my collection.
Right.
That gets me fired.
She's fired up.
Well, it does, because I feel like we're taking advantage of our clients, and that's the last thing we should be doing. Making a fair market value, marking up your product or finding a better product or spending the extra time to send the note so they understand. All of that makes sense to me. But to just take a government rate and tack on whatever percent you think, that just feels sleazy to me. But tell me what I'm missing, Jennifer.
Yeah, so that's you being the government too. So.
Right?
So
At that point, we're just joining them.
We're just joining them, right? So it's more like if you can beat them, you join them, right? So no.
Aristocrat t-shirts for everybody. Yes. It feels that way to me. But okay, I'm going to simmer down now. You go ahead.
Yeah, so I think we should just be sensitive because the truth, at the end of the day, it's not all about the money, right? We're also building relationships and with the clients. So whatever way we can help out, then let's help out. You never can tell. It could be referred to a bigger client. More money will come from somewhere else. Integrity is important. So just do what you need to do just to make it a bit easier on the client. And I'm sure what is ours, right? So the big projects will come, we'll get the other clients and we'll be able to maintain our livelihood or balance up. Yeah, but we don't have to rip the clients off. I don't think so.
I love that. Okay, we have got to wrap this up. This conversation could go on forever, as tariffs are. I want to go around and give everybody a final word, what they're saying to the people in their circles as we bring this to a head. So let's just go. We're going to go the other way around the table this time. Jennifer, lead us off.
It's okay. You'll be fine. Everybody will be all right. So that's what I just tell everybody. We will be all right. So we just do what we need to do and keep moving.
Great word. Rick?
I would kind of piggyback on that. I mean, it's just another moment in time. Anyone that's been in business, longer than 10 minutes knows that, these moments in time happen. It's not the first time that we've seen a blip in the economy or we've had to panic in situations like this. So just, hang in there. It is a normal part of doing business. This is what we signed up for.
Good friendly reminder. Laurie?
I would just say, have a lot of patience and give a lot of empathy to others and, navigate this the best you can. I mean, it's really a tough situation and we're all doing our best. So join the crowd.
Absolutely.
We're in this together.
We're in it together. Exactly.
No one is immune. And I think that's such a good point. Take the intangibles. It costs you nothing to be empathetic and kind to your clients. They're struggling too. And then don't feel like you have to eat all the tangibles. But also don't mark them up. Be ethical about it. Set the bar for your business and people will remain loyal to your brand. And that's everything. Thank you all so much for such a great conversation. Yeah. I so appreciate this. And I sure hope that our designers felt this was extremely helpful and most of all comforting. And there is a path forward and you don't have to sacrifice your business to do it. Thanks, everybody.
And that's the closing bell. I hope you've gathered valuable insight from our conversation today, equipping you to thrive in your interior design business. Don't forget to hit that follow button to never miss an episode. And if you have burning questions or specific topics you're curious about, explore our episode library, or better yet, book a strategy session directly with me at colorworks.coach.